As the Ottoman siege of Eger entered its most critical phase, the fortress's survival no longer depended on weapons or numbers, but on deception. With food nearly exhausted, ammunition scarce, and defenders physically drained, fortress commander Istvan Dobo recognized that victory through force was impossible. Instead, he turned to psychological warfare, crafting an illusion of strength that would mislead the besieging Ottoman army. By mid-October, the reality inside Eger was bleak. The garrison had suffered heavy losses, many soldiers were wounded or ill, and fortifications were badly damaged. Under normal circumstances, such conditions would have forced surrender. Dobo, however, believed that as long as the Ottomans believed the fortress remained strong, Eger could still hold. Dobo's strategy centered on manipulating perception. Orders were issued to create the appearance of constant movement within the fortress. Soldiers were instructed to change positions frequently, march visibly along the walls, and light fires in multiple locations after nightfall. From a distance, these actions suggested the presence of a much larger and well-organized force. Fake troop movements became a central element of the deception. Units were rotated repeatedly between wall sections, sometimes marching in full view of the enemy. Flags and banners were displayed prominently, even though the number of men carrying them was limited. The goal was simple: convince Ottoman observers that reinforcements had arrived or that the garrison remained far stronger than it truly was. Sound played an equally important role. Dobo ordered continuous cannon fire at irregular intervals, even when ammunition was dangerously low. Cannons were sometimes fired without shot, producing noise and smoke without expending valuable resources. The booming echoes across the battlefield reinforced the illusion of an active and confident defense. Loud singing and shouting were also encouraged, especially at night. Groups of defenders sang songs, chanted prayers, and shouted challenges toward the Ottoman camps. These sounds carried across the fields, suggesting high morale and unbroken spirit. For Ottoman soldiers listening in the darkness, the noise contradicted expectations of a starving, exhausted garrison. Psychological pressure was carefully maintained. Ottoman prisoners were treated in ways that allowed them to observe organized defenses before being released or exchanged. These individuals carried exaggerated impressions of Eger's strength back to their lines, further reinforcing the illusion Dobo sought to create. Inside the fortress, the deception served another purpose: sustaining morale. The act of marching, singing, and maintaining routines gave defenders a sense of control and purpose. Even when reality was grim, the performance of strength helped prevent panic and collapse. Ottoman commanders closely monitored the fortress, attempting to assess its condition. Reports from scouts and informants often conflicted. While some indicated shortages and damage, the visible activity on the walls suggested readiness for prolonged resistance. This uncertainty complicated decision-making within the Ottoman command. As days passed without signs of surrender, doubts grew among the attackers. The Ottomans had already suffered heavy casualties, and continued assaults promised further losses. If Eger remained capable of resistance, pressing the siege deeper into autumn risked supply problems and exposure to worsening weather. The deception strategy reached its peak during periods when the fortress was most vulnerable. When sections of the wall were at their weakest, Dobo increased visible activity nearby, masking damage behind noise and movement. This prevented the Ottomans from identifying critical points for attack. Historians later described Dobo's approach as a masterful use of psychological warfare in early modern conflict. Without reinforcements or adequate supplies, he transformed perception into a defensive weapon. The Ottomans, despite their military strength, were forced to consider not just what they could see, but what they feared might be hidden. The effectiveness of the strategy lay in its simplicity. No complex machinery or secret weapons were involved. Instead, Dobo relied on human behavior, how armies interpret sound, movement, and confidence under uncertainty. By controlling these signals, he controlled the narrative of the siege. As the siege dragged on, Ottoman morale also suffered. Soldiers questioned why a supposedly weakened fortress continued to resist so visibly. Rumors spread of hidden reserves and fresh troops. The psychological advantage slowly shifted toward the defenders, despite their material disadvantages. By the later stages of the siege, the illusion of strength had become inseparable from reality. The defenders, though few and exhausted, truly believed in their ability to endure. The Ottomans, facing mounting risks and unclear prospects, began to reconsider the value of continued assault. Dobo's deception did not win the siege through force, but it bought time. Time that proved decisive. Delays increased Ottoman losses, strained logistics, and eroded confidence. When withdrawal was eventually considered, the illusion of Eger's strength played a critical role in shaping that decision. The defense of Eger stands as a reminder that warfare is fought not only on battlefields but in the minds of commanders and soldiers. Dobau's strategy demonstrated that perception can be as powerful as steel, and that even a fortress near collapse can survive if its enemies believe it remains unbroken.